The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. My name is Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am solo tonight with our listeners here at Hoop Ball and our DFS show, and look forward to going over a really cool 6-game slate. It is Monday night right now. We're finishing up the games this evening. I'm having a terrific night. Was sitting at 371.9 fantasy points and still have Bowman and Pascal out there for Golden State. So it looks like a real profitable night. I know I got quite a few tweets from listeners just ecstatic about their lineups tonight. I think Mr. Apotri and I really nailed it last night. It was one of our more on the money nights with our takes on guys. So love to have those. You know, there's certainly nights when you want to bury your head in the sand, but tonight's one of those ones we can definitely celebrate, and we seem to be having a lot of those. So it is awesome. Before I get started, just real quickly want to thank our presenting sponsor, which is, of course, Fantasy Draft. They're the only rake-free fantasy site in the world, and they have the best contests. You could join their $30,000 pick and roll every day, or their $7,500 layup. That's only $5 to enter. And go to fantasydraft.com if you haven't already. Sign up. Use the promo code HoopBall, all one word, and you get 7 days free membership up to $1,000 in contests, and then join. And I'll tell you, you save a ton of money with the rake-free action. It is awesome. And tomorrow, which is Tuesday, when most of you will be listening to this, in the afternoon, our Coaches Challenge will post. And that is my most exciting thing of the week. I am dying to do well in that, and I plan on kicking ass in it tomorrow for sure. Definitely enter. It's a $2 entry. You can enter up to 6 times, and there's a cap on how many people can get in, and we expect it to fill. So I'll send out tweets tomorrow when it posts. It's usually mid to late afternoon because it's the Wednesday card. And so, definitely jump in that Coaches Challenge. It is sponsored by Fantasy Draft. Everything that goes into the tournament is paid out. There's no rake. And you also, if you win it, you get free swag from Fantasy Draft, shirt or hat or whatever the cool swag is that they have. So look forward to everybody joining that. Also want to thank some of our other sponsors for their part in bringing this show to you 7 days a week, free content, and that would be manscaped.com. Go to their website and sign up also with the promo code HoopBall and get free delivery and up to 20% off your order. Also, mybookie.ag, jump on there, sign up. They will take all of your wagers. They're the best book in the industry online. Love them. Got to get on there and play some mybookie.ag. Also, Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, our premier sponsor from day one, that is big part of Hoop Ball since the very beginning. So we want to definitely thank Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee and get on Amazon, order up some of that. It is the best that you will drink. I promise you that. All right. 6-game slate all by myself tonight, and so we get to go after it. The very first game of the night is a 7 p.m. Eastern game. It is the Indiana Pacers at the Charlotte Hornets, and the big news here, obviously, first of all, before I even start, let me just go over this as well. Make sure that you listen and plug into Twitter and hoop-ball.com forums all day tomorrow, all the way up until lock, because any changes, anybody that's sitting, anybody that's been counted in, all of that stuff that happens the next day, prior to lock, you got to get that information, because without that, you can't afford one player can really sink your roster. So you got to have that updated information. So follow us on Twitter at Hoopball Fantasy, and follow me at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi, and throughout the day. Hopefully you listen to this pod on your way to work in the morning or during a break or lunch break, and then click into Twitter and follow us there. And like I said, at hoop-ball.com, the DFS forum thread, because you got to get the updates. And the reason I started there is because as I was going into that first game with Indiana, that news is going to be extremely important. And it is with Domantas Sabonis. Is he going to play or not? Is a big question, and that certainly shuffles the whole entire aspect of things for that game. So you definitely want to check on that to see what's going to happen with his availability in that ball game against Charlotte. Malcolm Brogdon has been on a tremendous roll. His salary's up a little bit, but certainly worth a look just because of the groove that he's in. If Sabonis is ruled out, the other guy also that I think you have to take a big consideration on is TJ Warren. He has really stepped up and done a great job, a really solid job taking the key shots. He and Brogdon have been fantastic. Those are two guys you need to consider against Charlotte without question. There will be a lot of play, I think, that goes to Goga Batazzi, the rookie. He got a decent run, and he is a good fantasy points per minute guy. I just don't know, even with Sabonis and Turner out, if he's going to get more than about a 25-minute run. So, he played hard, but he was a big disappointment for those that rostered him last time out. So I think it's just a little too risky on this sort of good 6-game slate to play. The other guy, Jeremy Lamb, same thing. He is not afraid to chuck it up there, but inconsistent, especially in the ancillary categories where you can gain some points in steals, assists, that kind of thing. So from the Indiana side, I am going to focus on Brogdon and Warren, but we have to stay very aware of what the Sabonis news is, because that's very important. On the Charlotte side of the ball, they've been a very tough team to figure this year and very hard to count on in DFS. Devontae Graham, his salary has been going up a little bit. He's been solid and getting a good run at point. He was great when he was dirt cheap. I rostered him a couple of times at the minimum, but now it's getting a little bit tougher with his salary. So I get it if you're considering him. I'm not sure I'm going to plug him in there. Rozier has been starting to, raise the level of his game. He's been getting used to playing the two a little bit and starting to get there, but not quite enough to pay off value in my mind. Dwayne Bacon's coming off a great game. Again, super inconsistent. He has some really great games, some just average games. So it's hard to roster him as well. Miles Bridges has been a disappointment. I would steer clear of him. He's not shooting the ball well from the field whatsoever or from three. Been very inconsistent in, being rotated quite a bit. The shine is coming off of PJ Washington a little bit. He started off like gangbusters that first 2 or 3 games, first two specifically, and he's been consistent and he's been okay. Again, his value hasn't been quite the same as his price has gone up a little bit. Certainly somebody you want to keep an eye on, but not sure he's the best play. One guy for the very first time this year that I am going to consider tomorrow is Cody Zeller. And I know it seems sort of bizarre, but with the shorthandedness of the front court for the Pacers, Zeller is solid. I mean, he has had some very good games where he's had a high output, and being a home game for Charlotte, I think Zeller is definitely worth a play, and I don't expect his ownership to be anything fantastic. All right, let's move on to game 2. Interesting game, not a game I'm going to target. The over-under is going to be low. I don't expect the pace to be high, and I think there's blowout possibilities, and that's the Boston Celtics at Cleveland Cavaliers. That's the other 7 o'clock game. This is one where it's a buyer beware type of situation, because you just don't know what the minutes are going to be. Cleveland is not that good at all. Boston is putting it together. Jaylen Brown is still out, so he's not going to play. Kemba's certainly turning it up a couple notches. Jason Tatum has been solid consistently. The other guys have been a little up and down. Marcus Smart has thrown in a few games that have been good. Gordon Hayward, again, up and down. Also, there's no value really at center because Tice was getting a lot of minutes there, but Cantor is back for that game on Tuesday. So I believe they'll divvy up the minutes there. So, I can see the Kemba side, especially going against the young guards of Cleveland. They're not that good defensively. So I am going to consider Kemba. However, again, I'm concerned more so that Boston blows them out and Kemba doesn't get enough runs. So, he's not going to be 100% plug and play for me, but I am going to fire him up in some lineups without question. On the Cleveland side of the ball, it's interesting. They have Kevin Love has been just crushing it, man. He has been absolutely terrific. I'm not going to go that direction in this game. His salary's up there, and Boston's just such a good team defense. They'll rotate some tough players on him, and I think he may have a tough time reaching value at such a high cost. Tristan Thompson's been up and down as well. He's had some really solid rebounding games. Again, I don't think this Boston matchup favors him. And the guards are just all chopping it up between Garland, Sexton, Clarkson, and even Knight's getting in there some. So, again, this is a big fade game for me, all told, other than maybe Kemba. And really that's it. I think you don't want to stack anybody from this game for sure on a slate where there are definitely some better options. All right, the 7:30 Eastern Standard Time game is the Spurs at the Hawks. And Trae Young is going to be back tomorrow from all reports, which definitely changes the pace of play and changes sort of the whole dynamics of the game, really. John Collins is dinged up a little bit. He is a question mark, so that's one you definitely need to follow tomorrow. Alex Len's even dinged up a little bit. Evan Turner's still out. So, it's going to be interesting, depending on how all of that rolls out tomorrow. If Collins and Len are out, Jabari Parker is a play I think you got to make tomorrow. So, again, it's going to be dependent on what takes place as far as, who's going to be ruled in and ruled out. But, put a star next to Jabari Parker. And, if he's the starting four and going to get 30 to 35 minutes, he is a DFS points per minute monster. So you want to consider him for sure. How much does Trae Young go? Is he going to be an option? I don't know. At his salary right now, I'm not going to go that direction. I can't imagine being a young team and he being such a young player and also going against the tough Spurs defense. I'm not going to go Trae Young at all. But, for those that have been riding his 50 and 60 point fantasy nights, I understand, but not a direction that I'm going to go. Regarding as far as the rest of the Atlanta players, I think you're going to see a splitting of minutes between a bunch of guys. Bembry, Reddish, Herter, Hunter, those guys are all going to get some run. Nobody that I would roster on any of my DFS lineups. Way too risky, especially in cash games. So for me, really, if Collins sits specifically, I'm definitely going to fire up Parker. I may fire up Parker anyway, even if Collins doesn't sit, just because he's cheap and he will put up some fantasy points. That's it for me on the Atlanta side. Even though they're a good pace team, Spurs will definitely slow them down a little bit and cause some issue there, I believe. On the Spurs side, it's a little bit different story in the sense that they get to play in a pace-up game against Atlanta. Atlanta's not the best defensive team in the league, but the Spurs will control pace in this game. I think that they will slow down Atlanta more than Atlanta will speed them up. And, that gives me a little cause of concern. Also, Pop's being Pop. He's rotating, 10, 11 guys. He's not overplaying anybody. Murray, White, Forbes, Mills, Bellinelli, all those guys are getting minutes. It's very frustrating if you play one of those guys like a Murray or White or Forbes, and you sit there just chewing your fingers because they play 20, 23 minutes, and they're just not going to make value. So I can't go there. DeRozan, and Aldridge are always options to play. They're certainly not getting anywhere near the usage that they did last year, and they would make value a lot and make a lot of my lineups last year. If they fit your build, I'd use one or the other. I think they both have equal opportunity here to do decently against Atlanta. I almost lean more towards Aldridge just because of the front line problems with Atlanta and they're being short bodies there. LaMarcus with that deadly mid-range game can certainly put up enough fantasy points to help a lineup. But, he's more of a mid-range price guy and certainly, wouldn't be a bad guy to put in your builds. There's no doubt about it. Other than that, though, Lyles, Gay, all those guys, Damari Carroll, Pirtle, they're all getting minutes, but not really DFS relevant. Just not going to be, good enough to make my lineup. So really from the San Antonio side, Aldridge with maybe DeRozan if he fits the small forward build on your lineup. But not a game that I'm going to target by any stretch. All right, halfway through, 3 games to go. Just another quick mention, we are sponsored by Fantasy Draft, and we appreciate them being our presenting sponsor. Get in the Coaches Challenge. It'll post tomorrow afternoon. Best $2 you'll spend for your week. It's a real flat payoff, so you're generally going to always get something back. I mean, I finished in the middle of the pack both weeks. I think I got $5 and $4 back. So, I was hoping to have a lot more bragging rights than that, but not quite yet, but maybe this is the week. So jump in there. Go to fantasydraft.com if you haven't signed up already and use the promo code HoopBall and get that going. Remember that you can hear there's our sponsor, or our Chance, the mascot of the DFS show, making his presence known a little bit here. All right, Chance. All right, back to this. I was stating that you can listen to our podcast anywhere podcasts are heard. Tune in to us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube. You name it, we are there. And we are 7 days a week. You can find us. Just search, if you just search DFS Today podcast, we're going to come up. You don't even have to put the NBA in there. You're going to find us. We do ask that you take just a couple of seconds. It means a lot to us, to mark 5 stars, likes, any positive reviews, thumbs up. All of that stuff really keeps our sponsors happy, and we certainly appreciate it. Definitely stay in touch with us throughout the day tomorrow on Twitter. These shows work best in conjunction with staying up to speed the next day. All the responses I'm getting on Twitter are saying, people are listening to the shows. They're starting to build their lineups. They're getting a shell idea of what they want to build. Then they're following the news to see any changes that go on throughout the day, and they're fine-tuning things right down to lock. And they're finding that they're having a lot more consistency and a lot more profit across the board. So we've only had a couple losing nights between preseason and the regular season so far. So we're turning a profit. Manage that bankroll. Don't bet more than 10 or 15% of your bankroll on any of the sites each night. And just build that up. You build it up, and then maybe you hit a big GPP like I did last Wednesday on the $1,500 tournament. And then you got a nice little nest egg there to build on. You can take a few shots at some good head-to-heads, but you got to be smart with it. You can't be lackluster or not disciplined, or it's not going to work out for you. Treat it like a side business. Side investment, and that's what's going to work out for the most profitable. But do follow us on Twitter tomorrow. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Our other 2 DFS hosts at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria, and then our man Andrew is at Language Olympic, just like it sounds. And again, at Hoopball Fantasy. Also, hoop-ball.com forums. Just click on the forum DFS thread, and our guys Miles and Andy are updating that stuff real time throughout the day. They do a great job, and definitely follow them. And then when you're on there at hoop-ball.com, sign up for our premium package. We have so many live shows and pods and everything going on. It's one-stop shop for all kinds of fantasy basketball, NBA fantasy basketball of any kind, whether you're in year-long leagues, head-to-head, dynasty, you're doing DFS, a combination of all of it. Really, you don't have to go anywhere else but hoop-ball.com. So we look forward to seeing you there. All right, let's finish this slate up. Games 4, 5, and 6. Another 8 p.m. Game, the Lakers at the Chicago Bulls. Interesting game. Chicago has certainly stumbled out of the gates and looked very shaky. And again, this is one of those games, even though it's at Chicago, that I fear blowout possibilities here. LA seems to be really getting a little bit more into a groove. And like I say, Chicago has really been stumbling. Wendell Carter is a game-time decision. He missed the last game, so that's not going to help if he's out of there, but keep an eye on him. I have Otto Porter here listed as a game-time decision as well. certainly want to keep an eye with him as well. He's been on a minutes restriction also. Um, I'm not going to play anybody on the Chicago side. I'll just come straight out and say it. The only guy that I've played a few times this year, and he's done pretty well, is Zach LaVine. But, with LA's defensive backcourt, they have a couple of strong defenders that I think can split time and get up and give LaVine some trouble. And that's something that's a concern. Now, Bradley is dinged up. He's questionable. That hurts a little bit, but Danny Green does such a great job defensively, and I think he'll just check the daylights out of LaVine and just make him a non-issue. So that's it on the Chicago side. I just don't have interest there, and I know seems like I'm not recommending as many guys as I usually do. I think the pool of recommendations that I have is a little lower than normal. It seemed like tonight's game, Monday night, we had all the fast-paced, high-octane teams, and it was hard to minimize the guys that I was selecting. But the Tuesday night slate is the opposite. You got a lot of slow down, grind it out, some good defensive, some mismatches, and all of that creates definitely tougher choices to make. So I think I'll try to continue to round up a good core of players that we've touched on so far and will in these final games that you can build your team around. And then we're going to have to fill in those ancillary pieces as the news comes out tomorrow based on value, like the Jabari Parkers, and guys like that. So, and if Wendell Carter sits, then Lauri Markkanen comes more into play for me and is a possibility on the Chicago side, just from a usage and opportunity standpoint. So, all right, let's look on the LA side of the ball then. Obviously, do you spend up? A lot of people have been spending up for LeBron and Davis. It's very difficult to spend up for both, and I find a little too risky, especially in a game like this against the Bulls where they have the possibility of blowing them out. You really sort of get to pick here. I think it's certainly smart if you feel that James or Davis, whichever one's going to have a better game, I think you use one of them in your core build. I think it's a lot of the winning lineups are going to either have Davis or James in it. And I think they're both going to do well in this matchup. I like Davis a little stronger than LeBron. He is going to be the highest salaried guy on the board. If you want to save a little bit, you can pivot to James. But I just don't see anybody from the Chicago side that's going to remotely be able to stop AD. And he's playing great, man. He's also ratcheting it up on defense. He's been blocking a bunch of shots. He leads the NBA in blocks right now. That's the kind of game that he's playing. He has made it known publicly that his goal is to win Defensive Player of the Year, which I'm not sure if everybody had heard that, and he's showing it on the floor. Blocks, steals. He's doing a tremendous job. So AD will be an anchor for me in my builds, but have no problem if you pivot to LeBron. As far as the other Lakers go, if you need one value guy that you have to plug into your lineup that's going to help, make salary for you, I think you can look at Dwight Howard. He had a great game the last game. I mean, he's putting up a double-double in 15, 18 minutes. So, if he gets the 25-minute run, he can certainly smash his value. Another guy that's getting a big rotational minutes for them that's super cheap is Alex Caruso. I like him as like last guy in to make, allow you to buy up in a different spot. He's getting decent minutes off the bench. Rondo's still out. Bradley's questionable. And I think Caruso's going to get a decent enough run, certainly, and doesn't have to get much of one to pay his value. So there's another guy that could be one of those strategic ancillary parts that you fit in. All right, Game 5, Orlando Magic, Oklahoma City Thunder. It's an 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time game. Definitely a little nerve-wracking game here because Orlando is the slowest paced team in the league. They're 30th, and they're playing at OKC. OKC does play decent defense as well. There's a good possibility that Adams is back, which helps anchor them defensively also. And it looks like maybe Noel might be out. On that side of the ball, he got injured in the last game. But again, we need to keep the news on both of those guys. I've rostered Shea more than anybody else, I think, other than Drummond. I've rostered Drummond every day but one. I think Shea maybe is the same every day but one, and he makes value all the time. He really does. I like him again. I just don't see why there's any reason to fade him. He's their go-to guy. Gallinari's a veteran. Chris Paul's a veteran. Those two guys were supposed to be the two go-to guys, and Shea was supposed to be the third guy that worked his way in. But Shea's been the man. He's taking more shots than anybody. He's go-to. He's getting a lot of minutes. He's up towards in the top 10 of minutes played. His usage is good, and I think Orlando's two-guard defense has been solid at all. Fournier's not a good defender, in my opinion. So, I'm firing up Shea across the board. He's going to be one of my lock plays tomorrow for sure. I don't believe Chris Paul's really worth salary or Gallinari. They both have the capacity to put up decent numbers, but in a slow down pace like they're going to face with Orlando, I just don't see a need to go there. And like I said, the Adams-Noel situation with both of them being dinged is nothing that I want to even get close to. On the Orlando side of the ball, you got to consider Vukovic. He also has been playing somewhat uninspired ball, though, this year. Certainly not even close to his numbers, usage, or output as he had. And he is expensive. So I'm probably not going to go there. But, with some of the issues at Oklahoma City, if for some reason Adams and Noel are out, then you got to play him because it's going to be hard to, stop him from the Oklahoma City side. So, again, very news related there. Mo Bamba's not, worth it. He's been on a minutes restriction. They've been super cautious with him as well. The other guys have just been massively inconsistent, and I just, I've seen people roster Gordon and Isaac and Fournier and a little bit of Fultz and a little bit of Augustine, and there's no consistency there. They've been a slow-paced team all year. Like I say, OKC is decent enough defensively, even though they're playing faster. So, everybody that Orlando plays is a pace up. So it's not like this is going to be any different, and they just really haven't been taking advantage of that. Not really impressed by Orlando's game whatsoever, and I'm not touching any of these guys unless the bigs are out for OKC and I decide to dial up Vuk. But that's it for that game for me. It's pretty slim pickings. I'm interested in this 9 o'clock game. This has a lot of intrigue to me. The last game on the slate is the Miami Heat at the Denver Nuggets. So you've got one of the fastest teams in the league in the Heat and one of the slowest teams in the league, the Nuggets, and it's in Denver in the high altitude. Miami's coming off just beating the living daylights yesterday, which when you listen to this will be 2 days ago, out of the Houston Rockets. I mean, they were up like 34-4 and just murdered them. And they're gelling. They're playing really good ball. They look good across the board. Now, this game just is going to be just very intriguing because of the different types of games here that they play. Even though Miami's fast-paced, they have some defensive stoppers. I mean, Butler's just a monster defensively, and Bam, really nice job. Winslow's a game-time decision. I think I read that he's looking more like he may play, which really helps their scenario. Kendrick Nunn is coming off his worst game of the year, really his first real dud that he put up there, but he was in foul trouble and just out of sync, and they blew Houston out. Hero's been very consistent. My man Duncan Robinson, man, I've been riding this guy at minimum price 4 times in a row, and he has paid value. He went 8x one time. This last game, he was 7x. I mean, that dude can shoot. He's been starting. He's been getting great rotational minutes. But, we need to check his price and see that it's not leaking up. That's my only concern there. I like a lot of the guys on the Miami side, but, it's hard because you have to pick and choose. You can't put everybody in your lineups here. But if Winslow's back, I think that pulls a little bit away from Nunn, and I'm going to probably shun away from him. If Winslow's out, then I'm going to put Nunn back in there because his playmaking role, he's starting at the point then and really going to get some more assists and points there. So that's going to be dependent on who plays and who sits. My favorite plays on this team or this game are Butler and Bam. I know they're more expensive guys, but if you can put one of them in there, I think they're both worth it. I think Bam is just going to wreak havoc in the middle. Not a good matchup for Jokic with Bam's combination of power and speed. Obviously, Jokic is slow of foot and doesn't have a tendency to do as well against the super athletic centers. So I think Bam could have a big game. Really like him in this role. I don't believe Jokic will get him into foul trouble. That's always a concern. Bam is susceptible to some fouls. That's always something that you have to keep an eye on. But I'm not expecting that to happen in this scenario because Jokic will take quite a few face-up outside shots that Bam doesn't need to contest as much as the paint shots. And Butler's just playing great ball. He's all over the floor. He's going to contribute in every category, steals, assists, you name it. And, easily pays value often just because, he's every category guy plugging in those numbers. So, if Duncan Robinson stays cheap, always an option to make, that roster, just putting a Duncan Robinson and our Lakers point guard in there. Those guys, the two of them Alex Caruso, they can be such good value, that it can help you complete some really star-studded lineups, especially on fantasy draft where the positionality isn't nearly as important. So certainly a guy to consider there, but most of my focus is going to be on Butler and Adebayo in this game for sure. On the Denver side of the ball, I've been down on Jokic from the preseason, and he's only been paid value once this season. He looks out of shape and uninspired, and for that I'm still not going to play him. I just don't see him doing well against Bam or some of the aggressive Miami defenders in the paint. So he's a pass. Millsap's been inconsistent. Plumlee and Grant really haven't given him that much off the bench, or Porter. Will Barton is a game time decision. He's been hurt. He may sit. Torrey Craig started in his place last time. He's not really a viable DFS play. Jamal Murray is, he's always a possibility, but he's just shooting the ball so terribly right now that it's not even funny. But definitely a guy that is a streak shooter and can get hot. Um, I like the Miami defenders on the perimeter, and that makes me steer a little bit from Murray. Gary Harris is another guy that, if in the right situation, can smash at times. But they are using a decent amount of guys there. Monte Morris, Malik Beasley, like I said, Torrey Craig. They're all getting some run at the guard spots, and that just gives me a little angst in going with any of them. So I'm going to fade the Denver side. I just believe in the way Miami's playing right now, and I think Denver's slow down and just the pace, lack of pace there, and the splitting of minutes just makes me more in that spot. So. All right. I am a little out of breath here, going 6 games on my own, but hopefully that gives you a good base. Actually, there was, a decent amount of guys there, some big salary guys, some mid-level pricing, and a couple of real value plays. But a lot of that is going to unlock with the news tomorrow. So, I know I've mentioned it like 5 times, and I'm a broken record, but, tune in tomorrow, grab us on Twitter. I'll be on there all day, and watch for that news, because a Sabonis in or Sabonis out is a huge thing. An Adams in and Adams out. I mean, all the different ones that we mentioned today are going to shift your main build, so you want to keep up to date on those. But this, hopefully this show gives you a good base to start from. Gives you a good idea of sort of what we're dealing with on the slate. It's like an opposite slate of what we had Monday night, just a completely different group of teams, from speed and offense to more slow down and defense. It's fun. That's what makes DFS great. I mean, it's a lot of the pay lines tonight were 370, 375. It was insane. With this group of teams, you're going to be able to cash at like 300. The 300 line is probably going to get it done, in my opinion. And that's a vast difference, a 70-point swing, and on a 6-game slate one night to a 6-game slate the next. But again, that's all part of the strategy and helps, figure out how you want to put your builds together. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed the show. Tomorrow night, I will be back on with Mike Apotria, and we'll be going over the Monster Wednesday slate. That's always the biggest slate of the week, pretty much, and it's also our Coach's Challenge, games. So you definitely want to tune in tomorrow to that show. So fantastic. Enjoyed it. Hope you make a lot of money with some of this advice. Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know how you're doing, and I'd love to share the love there as well. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining me on Hoopball NBA DFS today. For my 2 fella partners in the DFS world, Mike Apotri and Andrew Hansen, and our wizard behind the drapes, Dan Bespris, I am Coach. We will catch you again tomorrow as we look to crush it in NBA DFS. Have a good one.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.